Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Holiday Eating Survival Guide Talk with Kelly Rach, your warrior dietitian who fights with you and for you to break free of the food, body, and weight obsessions that are occurring in your life. And I'm here today with a very special guest who I met, 9 years ago when she was in the depths of an eating disorder, working hard to regain her life and her freedom from those food, body, and weight obsessions. And this is Ashley McCoyne. And I've brought her here today to really talk with you, to help you know that you're not alone, especially during this holiday season. Like, Ashley gets it. She's been there. She knows how tough it is to be around food and to navigate the holiday parties and the family gatherings. And she graciously agreed to share some of her testimony today, to just try to encourage you and just show her path to recovery. And so today I'd like to just hand over a lot of this time to Ashley to share her story, to help guide us to the holiday eating patterns that are in front of us. And I'd like to now welcome Ashley to the stage. It is just a wonderful privilege and honor to reconnect with you so many years later after first meeting you at Remuda Ranch. And I still remember that picture that you showed me of the two of us there. And, it's just incredible how God works and brings us back together, and to really hear your story now and to see you, as a wife and a mommy. And, I can't wait to hear what you're going to share with the audience. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your history, your struggles with eating disorder.
So I got sick when I was 13, and I was restricting my food intake just more and more as time went on to try to lose weight. And it kind of spiraled into like anorexic and bulimic behaviors, and I just continued to struggle throughout middle school and high school and into college. And I was in and out of like treatment with outpatient IOP and hospitals. And eventually I had kind of reached this point of like in college where I was just tired of fighting. Didn't think I could get better. And I was just really sick and didn't really see a way out of that. And I was told kind of by my mom, kind of out of nowhere, that I was going to be going to Remuda Ranch. And I told her that I wasn't going to go. I was just kind of over it all. And I didn't want to go. And I fought for a little bit against that until she just kind of threatened me, until I really didn't have a choice but to go. And that's where, of course, I met you. And it was at Remuda where I caught a glimpse of what life could be like. And I became more hopeful for my journey, and that I had a chance of getting better. And so I was there for 2 months, and I left, and I don't think I was really ready to leave. I think I knew that, and I think you and everybody else knew that. But my 60 days was up, and insurance wasn't going to cover more, so I left. And within a couple months, I relapsed again and into pretty like hardcore bulimic behaviors. And I really, for I guess a couple years after that, I just continued in this cycle of bulimia. And then I found out, I met who is now my husband, and I found out that I was expecting a baby with him. And that totally changed my thought process. And I wasn't battling the thoughts over food and weight anymore. It just became about feeding my baby. And so at that point, I would have told you that I was better. I was not going to struggle anymore. And I really thought like this was going to be the game changer for me. And I had my first little boy, and I did pretty well after I had him. And then I had another baby. I found out I was pregnant again, and I had a daughter. And then about when she was probably almost 2 years old, I went into a relapse, and I didn't know that I was really in relapse, but it was just a very slow fall. And then suddenly I was in too deep, and I couldn't see how I was going to get myself out. And I was seeing a therapist at that time, and she kind of shook me into reality and helped me to really um, try to pick up the pieces and move forward in real recovery as opposed to like eating disorder management mode. And so I just worked really hard with my therapist over the next couple of years, and I feel like that relapse was now the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because it's really pushed me to move forward and to get to where I am now and where I'm going.
Awesome. And so how would you describe where you are now in relationship to where you were?
Um, to in like where I was at what point?
Well, I guess, do you consider that you're in recovery now, right?
Yes.
How does that feel to you, and like what's different in your life now that you have recovery?
I feel like I'm able to like experience life. I feel like I'm able to live my life. I'm not like going through each day worrying about what I'm going to eat or not eat, or when I'm going to eat, or how much calories something has. Like, I'm able to
Mhm.
actually live and
Right,
hopefully do like live as God would want me to live.
right, right. Well, speaking of God, how has he been a part of this journey for you?
My Well, it's starting at Bermuda. I was kind of at a place before Bermuda where I didn't know what I believed in or if anything. And I was raised Catholic, but at that point my life was just really dark, and I didn't know what to think or believe. And at Bermuda, I really I really came to a point where I um, believed in God and could see that he was in this, and he was a part of getting me to Bermuda and helping me like in those first steps of recovery. And so that's kind of where it all began. And then as once I had kids, we started going back to church as a family. And then I really grew in my faith. I discovered K-Love, and music has been huge for me in this journey. And then back when I relapsed a couple years ago, in that process of trying to push forward in recovery, I had a friend who she told me that she was reading about strongholds, and food is a stronghold, and it was like a Christian book that she was reading about. And she was like, I feel like you just keep getting stuck, and like the wheels are turning, but you're not going anywhere. And so, and she was telling me that she thinks that we just need to have a group of people just like pray over me and try to just release the stronghold. And I kind of thought she was crazy, like I wasn't used to all that. And so I was just like, okay, like I really look up to her and trust her. And so I had to kind of like process that a little bit. And I had to not do it because she told me to do it. So time, continued on, and I started really like feeling the pull to do it. And so I I was struggling one night with over something to do with food, and I really just felt like, okay, I'm done. Like I don't want this anymore. I want to give up all control and just be in the process of recovery. And and so I texted her and I was like, okay, I'm ready. And so we were like trying to think of a time and all of this. And well, it just kind of a couple of days passed, and it was a crazy time for both of us, and we just didn't get together or talk about it much. And then there was one morning in church that I was sitting with her, and our youth pastor and one of our youth like were preaching that Sunday, and they were talking about like the first one was talking about like seeing your body as a temple and treating it well, and so that had been like a theme that had continued to come up in my life lately. And so I was starting to get a little squirmy in my seat. And so then our youth pastor went up and he starts preaching it. And I don't know how many times he said it, but it was over and over again. He would say some version of like, don't let another day go by. Today is the day, like that, like all of these like things to do with not letting another day pass. Like you need to do what you got to do to change your life now and this and that. And so I got really, really uncomfortable in my chair. And like, I knew I was hearing it loud and clear, like this needs to be done today. And my friend had told me before the service, like, you need to not let another, like, if you're feeling the pull, you need to go ahead and do it. And so I was like, yeah, whatever. We'll do it at some point. We'll get it done. And then after that service, she just kind of looked at me and I was like, okay, I get it. Today's the day. And so we worked it all out, and I like sent a group text out to the people that had kind of become my support system as I moved forward in recovery. And we met at the cross at my church. There's this huge cross out, and with like little benches around it, and an area outside by my church. And so we met there on October 30th of last year, and I was a total wreck. But I mean, my life really literally hasn't been the same since. I had a group of people surrounding me just praying for me, and I just surrendered it. And then from that point on, I've really been able to quit getting like stuck and to take steps forward. And so that has been like the biggest change, I guess, and the biggest way that God has like helped me. Like I continue to remember, I gave it to him, it's not mine anymore.
Story, and really such an encouragement, I think, to the ladies that are listening, just to know that it took you time to get to that place of surrender. You know, I think a lot of times in this work, especially as a dietitian coming in from a faith-based practice, you know, we talk about surrender. For some people, it's an automatic. For others, God has to keep like knocking at your door saying, hello, are you listening? And you were listening, but you weren't ready to take the step yet in your own flesh. And then you kept hearing it. And that, like, I love how you describe, like, you're just kind of like in your skin, like, you know, yeah. Man, that Holy Spirit was just like covering you inside and out, saying, come on, Ashley, I'm here and I've got you. You know, and so that's just really powerful to hear. And I love that, you know, you had a team of people around you doing this with you. So that's an encouraging thing, too, that, you know, you don't have to do this surrendering thing all by yourself. You certainly can, but wow, the power that comes when you've got the support of more believers around you to help you release that. And you know, and I've got goosebumps talking about it right now, because I can just imagine you at the cross. I mean, I've seen your picture, and maybe we'll be able to share that somehow with this video, but it's such a powerful picture. And I think maybe it's even your shadow that's up with the arms up. Is that your shadow in the picture?
Taking the picture? Yeah.
I think, anyway, just that cross picture that you have is just so beautiful and telling of what God can do inside us when we finally get to our knees and allow for him to. So you're saying, like, in this past year since doing that, because it's 2017 now, that was back in October of 2016, like this recovery journey has been just that much easier for you because you've given it to him. Is that kind of how it feels?
Yes, and it wasn't the first time I tried to give it to him. You were talking about feeling that pull. There have been so many times where I'm like, I think maybe deep down I knew I wasn't totally ready to like give up control, because that's pretty scary. But but I would give it and take it back, give it, take it back. And this time was like for real. I'm like, I'm done. I'm ready to move forward, and just total surrender. And I feel like I've continued to keep it that way. Like, I'm not trying to take it back. I don't want it back.
Amen. That's not a fun thing to have in your life, and you probably have so much freedom and joy. Well, and earlier you mentioned like how in the eating disorder you had so much of a feeling of hopelessness and helplessness. Do those exist at that degree anymore, or if at all?
They don't exist at all. Like, I feel very hopeful, and I feel like I'm not a bit helpless. Whatever the opposite of that is, I feel that.
Yay! Oh, praise God. It is, what a joyful feeling. And then you can, of course, spill that over into your beautiful children and your marriage and the people around you, which is way exciting. So I thank you so much for sharing that part of your testimony, because I mean, my heart, and I feel like that is just like the biggest part of anybody's recovery, is allowing God to come in. Through him, all things are possible. He strengthens us. He equips us for the day ahead. With him, we can do it all. And it might not be an easy road. And we can hear from your story that it wasn't. I mean, 13 years old is when you started. And here you are now in 2017. So that wasn't just yesterday. Okay, 31. There we go. See, I wasn't going to call it out for you. But you all see, like, Ashley has had not just a year, not just 2 years, had many years of battling this. If I'm doing my math right, that's 18 years. Or I guess it would have been 17, to the point of kind of getting that surrender. And so, am I doing my math right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. My brain works. So that's a long time. And so to finally get to that place, you can do that with God. Those of you who are watching and listening to Ashley's story. So, well, Ashley, would you mind kind of, as we kind of move into the holiday talk, since that's coming upon us, we've got Thanksgiving coming, Christmas, we've got the New Year's coming. When you were in your eating disorder, what was the holiday season like for you?
It was pretty miserable and dark. And I would want so much to feel like joy and all of those things that you're like supposed to feel around the holidays. But and I would try really hard, but I couldn't, because I was just battling an eating disorder every day, but two, with all of the food and the family gatherings and all of that during the holidays, it makes it especially a time where I struggled to with all the meals, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So did you allow yourself to eat food, or was eating food just scary for you? What was that like when, like, let's just say Thanksgiving rolls around and you're kind of forced to come to the dinner table? What was that experience like for you?
It was hard. Like my whole family would get together, and I feel like I've always had two Thanksgiving like meals in the same day, and so I would have to do like a big lunch here and then a big dinner here, and so for someone with an eating disorder who like doesn't really eat unless I'm gonna do something about it afterwards. Like it was really, really hard. And I would go into like the meal just pretending to be normal. And I like my whole family was there and everyone knew that I was sick. It was obvious. And so but it was nothing that anyone ever spoke of, which I mean I guess could be a good thing. I didn't really want them to either, but it was just this weird, awkward, it was awkward for me anyway, because I just felt like I had to pretend to be normal and everyone just pretended I was normal. So I had to kind of go through the motions. And then so then that was pretty miserable for me. And I was mentally and physically and just attempting to sit down and eat like a normal quote quote meal.
Right. So you kind of had to do probably what a lot of people with an eating disorder have to do, and just the term "fake it till you make it," kind of just put on the face to get through the motions. So because I know a lot of the women that I've worked with, they have this fear of disrupting the holidays, and so instead they disrupt themselves so much internally to try to make peace at the dinner table and make everybody else happy and not focused on them. Is that kind of what it was like for you?
Big time. Yeah, I was so afraid. Like, I really just wanted to go and not eat or something like that. But I knew I couldn't really do that. I guess I could have, but I didn't want the focus in any way to be on me. And I felt like I would get a lot of people pushing me to eat or questioning me. And I felt like it would just become this big thing. And I didn't want it to be anything at all. So I would try to just kind of go through the motions, and it was hard. I dreaded it.
Did you ever feel like, in that kind of attempt to just go with the flow and do it anyway, did you ever feel like you were having to like prove yourself to your family members to kind of show like, look, I'm doing okay?
Yes, I felt like there's like this secretiveness about with eating disorders where um, everyone knew that I was sick, but at the same time, I didn't like throw it in their face. Like, so I felt like I didn't always want anyone to know like how sick I really was. And so
Hmm.
that was kind of another reason that I would handle it the way I did, because I didn't want everyone to think that I wasn't, I don't know, that I was as bad off as I was, maybe.
Sure. I mean, that makes sense. Like you want to give the presence that you're doing okay, and you don't, again, like you said, you don't need that or want that attention on you during the holidays, especially. So, well, I know that the gals watching are not alone, and they're probably facing some of that same stuff as they go into this Thanksgiving. But so, if my timing is right, last Thanksgiving would have been one of your first like successful holiday meals. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you tell me what that was like? What was different for you, and just kind of describe that experience?
Yes, it was less than a month after I had surrendered at the cross, and I really went into the holidays with a different like attitude. It felt it didn't feel real. Like I didn't feel like it was possible to have a Thanksgiving day where I wasn't just like in this like torture zone of
Mhm.
worrying about food or just anxiety. And so I just went in just with I don't know, I had a freedom about it, and I could eat what I wanted, I could not eat what I didn't want, and it was like
Mhm.
I was in control, but I not in like an eating disordered way. so
Right.
so I really was just free to enjoy the time with my family and my children and friends and just be present. And it was the first time that I feel like I was ever just present and not like off in my own little eating disordered world in my head.
Right. Yeah. Well, let's talk about that idea of being present. I think you had mentioned when we talked before that you maybe had some tips that you could share that might help people to be a little bit more present during the holidays, even if they are still in, the depths of an eating disorder. Maybe they're not quite in the same place where you are now, and that's okay. So, what would be some things you might say to encourage those ladies?
Um, I would say that as far as being present, I think I think there's different stages of recovery. And I feel like there was a time where it was appropriate for me to be like in this stage where I had to stay distracted during meals, like if I'm on a meal plan or something, for example, and just trying to get through whatever I have to eat at that time. Um, I think that it could be appropriate at that time to distract, but for me now, I feel like it's extra important that I don't distract myself because I want to be present. I want to like be able to stay tuned into myself and how I'm feeling physically, mentally, emotionally.
Mhm.
Um, and instead of just trying to get through the meal, like I want to experience it and in a way that I don't know. I think before I just would try to avoid it and to have like this mechanical eating type of thing. And
Right.
now it's like I slow down, I take a breath, like I think about how I want to feel and then getting kind of to that place, the whole process. I just very purposely stay tuned in to myself.
That's amazing. That's so good to hear that you can do that now.
Mhm.
Um, so eating can obviously be very tough. Was it ever helpful for you then or now to have a plan in place, and what might that look like?
Yes, I feel like I've had several different like ways of going about this at the holidays, but one way is I had like a log at one point where I had to like check in with myself every like hour or two. How am I feeling? And it was kind of like a way for me to remember to do that and not just get automatic, like in this automatic mode where I'm not like just trying to get through it. So like, I feel like today with technology, you could set alarms on your phone or do something to kind of like remind yourself to take a deep breath, step back, remind yourself that you're okay. Like just to ground yourself in the moment. And also maybe having a meal plan of some sort ahead of time. Like if you kind of know, I think, what's going to be at Thanksgiving dinner, so you can think about what you might want, or I don't know, I think you don't want to go so far as to obsess about it, but to just kind of get an idea of like food groups, or if whatever, it depends on where you are in your recovery, I think. But or even if you've never allowed yourself to eat something that you've wanted, allow a bite or 2 bites, or like small goals for yourself to make this year better than last year.
Absolutely. I love that idea of like really taking baby steps depending on where you are in your recovery. So just kind of this idea of progress, not perfection. So you know what, maybe there's a dessert there that you really love, or maybe it's a dinner roll, or maybe it's casserole or something, and you never let yourself have it. Taking just a bite this year and giving yourself full permission without compensating, and that will help relieve some of the guilt and shame and embarrassment that comes with it. But actually, I have a question. Are there things maybe that we should be prepared for family members to say? For example, what if they expect you not to eat the dessert, but they say, oh my gosh, I can't believe you took a bite? So how would you encourage the ladies watching to maybe kind of be prepared for those things that they might say?
Yes, this is a big one for me, because I feel like during the holidays it drives me crazy, because I think so many people get caught up in this mindset of like gorging on Thanksgiving, and I think there's so many like comments about how many calories are in something, or how far you have to run to work off your meal, and like stuff like that. And I think that people are left and right making comments about that, whether it be at a family gathering or just out shopping or whatever. I think it's just in our face. And so I think for me, it has been especially helpful to, like, instead of allowing those things to trigger me, to kind of separate myself from it and be like, okay, just because this is that person's belief or issue doesn't mean I have to make it mine. Like, I know better. I'm learning like a better way. And so I think we can still kind of try to, I know it's hard, but try to tune that stuff out, because like we know better, and or are learning to know better, that that's not what a healthy relationship with food is. And so I think you could be prepared if your great aunt is always talking about something over the holidays, or certain dish, or having a lot of calories or whatever. I think it's important to kind of prepare yourself for, how am I going to handle this year? And for me, it's occasionally I can say something like, more, not in like a smart way or anything, but just to kind of gently correct one of like a lie that someone believes about the meal that they're eating. And so that's one way I've found. Other times I just have to like remember that that's a lie, that's not truth, and I don't have to get caught up in that just because someone else is, and to just distract from that, or to change the subject, or just not be a part of it, like purposely stay out of those conversations.
Absolutely. That's really good encouragement to just kind of be purposeful about it. And I think it's powerful to consider those what if situations, and maybe for some people even taking the time to write down those what if situations and write out the response, so that you've even prepared yourself a little bit more to stand firm in the rational thought. Because Ashley, you can probably relate to this. When you get caught up in the moment, if you don't remember that you'd planned to act differently, then you're going to get blinders on, and you're going to get right back into that eating disorder mode, or the restrictive eating, or the binge eating, or just all of it. And you're going to feel defeated. But if you can plan ahead of time, then that can certainly help you. And maybe even having a support system, people around there that can, maybe you can rely on or lean on if you're starting to feel anxious or worried. Do you have any thoughts on a support system, and how has that helped you?
Yes, I was actually just thinking that, like, it's okay to step away, like, if you have to. There have been times when, like, I have really good friends still from Bermuda, like, we're kind of texting some during the holidays. That's technology is a really good thing sometimes. And
Mm-hmm.
we would text each other, like, check in with each other. So to have, like, ahead of time, you can have a support system, or maybe you're really close to your sister or your aunt or someone that's going to be there. If you're comfortable talking to them, like, do so ahead of time, and maybe they can be a support to you, or can, like, help. I don't know, you can have some kind of sign that you need to step away with that person, or you can have someone on call, like a friend that you all can call each other. Or if you just, I don't know, there's so many different ways, but it's important to get a support system in place ahead of time, I think.
Absolutely. Well, Ashley, these have been really powerful things to help prepare us for the Thanksgiving week coming ahead.
I think I would get so caught up over during the holidays before that I would be worried about what everyone else was thinking. But then I kind of just got to this place where it doesn't matter what everyone else is thinking about what I'm doing. Like, this is my journey of recovery, and I can make the choices in that. Like, I don't have to eat everything that's out there just because it's there, or just because this is somebody's famous dish if I don't really like it. Like, I can choose what I eat. I can choose what I don't eat. And for someone in recovery, that would be like eating it. I don't mean to say don't eat anything, but I think just getting to this place where it doesn't matter what everyone else is thinking and feeling, like eating what you're comfortable with eating, and just making your own choices in recovery around the meals.
Yeah, absolutely. So just kind of getting your mindset that, like you said, it's your journey and you're really in charge, especially for those of you who might be working with a team to navigate the recovery process. You and your team have probably set up something to help keep you safe, some boundaries or structure, and you can follow that, and you don't have to worry about what others are thinking and saying. I know it's easy to say, you don't have to think about it, because we have this tendency to do that. But just know, like Ashley said, like, you really are in charge of your process, and it's okay to eat what you're comfortable eating. Obviously, we want to encourage, nourishing your body well during the holiday season, like getting the minimums. And certainly over in our Facebook group, My Embrace Life, we'll be talking about some things more specifically like that you can do. Well, Ashley, I know God has been a really important piece of this puzzle of recovery for you. Are there any particular scriptures that have just really been important to you to keep on your heart that you'd like to share?
Yes, and I feel like both of these could be extremely helpful during the holidays, but I have two of them. There's a lot, but I narrowed it down to two. And one of them you've already talked about, actually, and it's Philippians 4:13, and this is a very well-known verse. And but it's also one, like, actually I don't know if you can see it, but I have a ring that I wear every day, and on the back it says that verse on it.
Oh,
And
that's awesome.
I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And that has been, like, I've just overall clung to that verse because it means I can do anything I set my mind to, as long as I have God behind me, and if I'm just leaning on Him. And so I can make it through, like, this Thanksgiving meal or whatever. I can do whatever I have ahead of me. And so that has been one that I've constantly in my head, no, I can do this because I can do all things. And so that's the first one. And then the second one is 1 Corinthians 10:13. And it is, no temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, He will also provide a way out so that you can endure it. So that has helped me to take a step back when I'm tempted to binge or purge or restrict or some sort of behavior, to take a step back and remember, like, okay, there's a way out. I don't have to give into this, because sometimes that pull is so strong that I don't feel like, or I do now, but before I didn't feel like there was a way out. I felt like I had to give in to this behavior or this urge. And that's not true. There's always a way out. You just have to step back and look for it and ask God to show you what that is.
Absolutely. Those are two powerful verses, and such a good reminder to know that we can do whatever we set our minds to, especially as we're working on glorifying God. And of course, moving into recovery is definitely something that will bring glory to his name, and that's your proof of that. Like, you have glorified God in the process of your recovery, and he gave you the strength that you needed to do that. And I love how with the Corinthians verse you brought in that in peace, that he shows you the way. He opens the door and the path out is there. We have to turn to him to find it. But, we may be in that moment of struggle, but when we turn to him and we look to him, we're going to find that light. We're going to find that way out. So praise God that it has been such a powerful movement in your life, and that you are here in recovery now. And actually, I just thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time with me to overcome nerves of being on video and working through this, and really just sharing the message of God's goodness and his glory. And recovery is possible, and it's a process, and to take each day by itself, and knowing that this Thanksgiving might be a little bit better for one of the ladies or many of the ladies watching this. So I really thank you for doing that, Ashley.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed doing this with you.
You're welcome. All right, until next time, bye for now.
Bye.